pockets of the org where it feels like we need 6 meetings to make a decision and 40 people. And
So you as a co-founder, and we have a few of the early team members who are here, like 9 years ago. Um, it's hard for people to kind of understand the context from phase to phase, and we do our day to day. We've got our targets, our goals, our projects, milestones, what we're trying to accomplish from that standpoint. Um, how has it felt? I mean, like you go from that transition of, hey. Can I be a successful entrepreneur still being in school? And then, and we won't talk about the exit yet, but like going through hyper growth, in some ways, you're now having responsibilities in a very short time frame post COVID that go from, hey, this is my capacity, to, do I belong here? And I'm not saying that you do or don't. I'm saying that from an experience standpoint, in such a short time frame, you go from small to gigantic.
yep.
How do you kind of feel that transition has been? Because you're still at the company. How has that whole process been as an evolution for yourself, from going from being a developer to now being a senior leader at one of the most successful companies in the United States?
I still have imposter syndrome every day. It never goes away from me. It's been a learning experience. It's like the classic cliches that we use. Like you're building the plane while you fly it. You just try to figure stuff out every day. That's been the theme for the last 8, 9 years of my life. Honestly, I'm very fortunate now, especially as we brought in Mikey Barra and Marcus 2 years ago. We could go into detail about that, but Adam Wexler, my co-founder, stepped out of the CEO role. We brought in a new one, who was formerly CEO at Activision Blizzard and Microsoft Xbox Gaming. So he's just seen they sold Activision Blizzard to Microsoft for 70 billion, largest acquisition of all time. So like these guys have seen things at a much larger scale and came in and really drove the level of operation, accountability, professionalism in the business up a lot. The last 2 years especially has been a much more heightened level of expectation and like frankly stress level for a lot of us than it has been, I think, in the 7 years past. But it's a good thing, right? Like they lit a fire into the org's ass and saying like, we're here, but we have a long ways to go. We're setting this business on a very intentional trajectory to become number one and compete with DraftKings, FanDuel, Fanatics, the household names of the in North America. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm only able to get by because we've been a lot more intentional, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years of making sure we've got the right leadership and people around us. That's made the job a lot easier, and being able to bring in people that fill the gaps for myself on engineering leadership, analytics leadership, IT security, people that have run CISO programs at public companies that, if our ambitions are trying to IPO in 3 to 5 years, we should go in and bring people that have been there, done that, has been like kind of the theme for the last couple of years, without necessarily killing some of the culture and the tenacity that we had developed in the early years. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of doubt and a lot of imposter syndrome and hard work to try to keep up with everything. But at the same time, like the things that do help is I personally think I have a pretty high EQ. So one thing I really focus on is developing good relationships with everybody in the organization and just being honest about strategic alignment, vision. Where can I help? Where can you help? I think we generally have that culture to this day. It still feels and operates like a startup, very similar to this vibe, I think. And so, those are some of the things that I think that help. And like ultimately, I think we've been able to bridge some of the inexperience, just calling it out specifically, with senior leadership like Mike, like Marcus, who we brought in, some of the other senior leadership we've been fortunate to attract over the last 2 years. And then the founding team and like a lot of the original guys just have a lot of tenacity and passion for the space. That's what keeps us, I think, competitive and able at the job.
So let's talk about kind of, I'm not saying the finish, there's a new chapter.
Sure.
I remember talking to Adam, just going through the process of deciding to bring on board Mike and new leadership. And that's always a struggle. To some degree, there's an exhaustion. You've been at this for a very long time. On the other side, it's like, hey, there's a long way to go. There's a lot of opportunity. And also, by bringing on, we'll just say, in this case, a professional CEO, you're also in the process, which is pretty obvious to me initially, is that you're preparing. And packaging up the company to have some kind of liquidity event one way or another. You want to be able to have the marketplace and have that process be as smooth as possible by finding leaders to come within the organization to try to get it there. And there's some risks to that as well. No offense to anybody who's been successful in the past. It's in the past and they have a long resume, and the resume comes in and they're not cheap. And you're hoping that that translates to something that's going to be a valuable exchange. Walk us through kind of like the before, during, and after process of the acquisition, because everything has to be mouth sealed, everything zipped for an extremely long period of time. And while you're doing the preparation for this, making sure there's not panic or what's going to happen with the org structure while you have new leadership and culture potentially could shift, and all that stuff. So walk us through kind of the hiring process, packaging process, and acquisition process.
Yeah, we started the search, I think, for the CEO in early 24. It took a while. Obviously, we went through a number of candidates, and generally all really like Mikey Barra, again, background from traditional gaming. Um, he brought in his CFO from Activision Blizzard, Marcus, who's operated at that level as well, obviously. And so transition was difficult. I mean, coming in, I think it was honestly a bit of a blur for me because there was so much work to be done after they came in. I mean, like I said, the level of operation went from here to here. Um, the biggest thing I had to do was make a change in our engineering leadership, our VP of engineering at that time. Like the former person wasn't necessarily working out, and arguably I took too long to make that decision. With Mike coming in, I was like, I've got to make this decision now, basically, because I can't even let it get to that point. And like we all know what the reality is, and so I had to step into that role and manage engineering for 3 or 4 months. And, that person had very good relationships with a organization of about 120, 130 at that point. So just making sure that like the ship doesn't fall apart, we can keep a lot of the talent and kind of bridge the gap. Also trying to raise the level of kind of operation within engineering during that period, managing some of that culture change with Mike and Marcus coming in and people coming to me, obviously, because Adam's no longer in the business. I'm the one co-founder stuck around saying like, how are you feeling about this? Are you going to be around? Like, are you leaving because I'm gone? If you are, all those kinds of comments. So I did a lot of work during that period, and I think it doesn't go unnoticed to just keep the org stable, stay focused, bring some more focus to a lot of org changes. Product and technology used to report into me for the first 6 years of the business. When Mike came in, we made the decision to move it over to Dylan, who would kind of oversee it and just drive the product vision a lot more from that point on. And so like making that transition and just working with the existing leaders. I distinctly remember the 6 months after him coming in, like basically August of 25 into 26. August of 24 into 25, just like a complete mad dash for myself. Eventually brought in a new VP of engineering, a couple of new leaders. They really started to take over the day-to-day. And the big learning for me was starting to see like what happens when you really hire the right people in the right role. Like that's what my eyes have been opened up to in the last 2 years. So it's something that Mike continues to push his executive leadership team. Like every week, every month, do we have the right people at this organization to drive it to the next phase? That obviously has an impact on culture. And so like those are some of the big considerations top of mind that like have fallen onto my plate, all while, a lot more level of scrutiny and stringency on roadmap, on execution, on making sure that lines up with financial plan and better coordination with marketing and operations and all that kind of stuff. So the short answer is it's like I said, it's been, I think, that much more stressful in the last 2 years. It's not like it's become easier. It never does. But I'm enjoying it. I feel like the learning element has been reinvigorated. I'm learning way more than I probably did in the 2 years prior to that. And yeah, I'm excited about being challenged. Like there's never a dull day at PrizePicks, and just the level of maturity of the organization has gone up a lot. The one thing that we're trying to be very mindful of now today is the organization's gotten to 600 people. We had an on-site with our product leadership team literally last week. We had honest conversations about like, hey, this isn't a systemic issue, but there's pockets of the org where it feels like we need 6 meetings to make a decision and 40 people. And like, I hate that. A lot of the founding team hates that. Mike hates that. So like his directive was do whatever it takes to stamp that out of the culture. Like we cannot become that. We're competing with not only DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fanatics, and we can talk about this, but like Robinhood and Coinbase have jumped in our category recently. $100 billion companies, $200 billion companies. So we've got to lead in all the advantages that we have. By no means do we feel like we're successful right now. And